And now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Attaf, Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community abroad of Algeria.
أشكركم سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, President. I would like to congratulate you upon your presidency of the Council. We would like to thank you for your stewardship, your effective stewardship of our work. We are gathered here today at a time when war is still raging in Ukraine and is spilling over into the third year without there being a horizon for a solution, a prospect of a solution on the horizon, and without any progress seeming to have been made to contain the effects and the repercussions of this conflict. We regret the fact that the lack of international inclusive initiatives and the lack of diplomatic avenues for peace to prevail seems to have become synonymous with this conflict, with its complications. At a time when the situation seems to confirm that we should absolutely not accept the status quo and should not accept the stumbling blocks that exist, whatever they may be, and not accept the difficulties. We are deeply convinced that the subject on our agenda today cannot in any way allow us to accept the repercussions of this war, because it has led to significant damage in terms of human lives and the destruction of property and resources for both parties, Russian and Ukrainian. It has paved the way for a human tragedy in all senses of the world. The war has pushed the whole of Europe into an open crisis, the most serious crisis, open to all kinds of complications, and the most serious since the end of the Second World War. The effects of this war are being felt in the entire world. And the repercussions of this war are still being felt. This, bearing in mind the fact that this is the most serious crisis that our collective security system has faced, and we have also seen major polarization in international relations that are going hand in hand with this crisis. We are seeing the effects of this throughout the world. And this is what led His Excellency the President of Algeria, Mr. Abdelrachid Tebboune, this is what led him to propose mediating between the two parties. The goal being to build on the basis of friendly relations, which links us to both of these countries and which are deeply found on trust and common understanding and cooperation. The goal being to bring the parties together and to use peaceful means to resolve this conflict. My country has sincerely tried to use its good offices through the Arab Contact Group from the moment when the conflict erupted, because we are convinced, we are strongly convinced that in such a war there are no winners, there are only losers. As long as there are people who have died and people who have been displaced and infrastructure that has been destroyed and economies brought to their knees and regional and international security have been threatened, this is affecting people at all levels. We are also intimately convinced that the international community has the ability to put an end to this conflict if the appropriate conditions and environment are in place to allow for a diplomatic initiative to succeed, an initiative that can be to the agreement of all parties to the conflict and who would ultimately have to execute it. Hence, Algeria invites countries to step up their efforts to move towards constructive negotiations together. This path would focus on a peaceful solution to the conflict, because the solution can only be political and peaceful. This path would move the parties beyond the winners versus losers logic, because these countries are linked by a long history of interdependent relations. This path must be based on the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter and international law, because these principles and international law are the principles that must be respected between member states and which govern relations between states. This path would ultimately make it possible to address the root causes of the conflict as a whole and to heed the security concerns of both parties. This approach is the only way to guarantee a lasting solution. This is a solution that all countries can aspire to, all countries who wish to see stability between these two countries, above and beyond any other consideration, as is the case for my country. Thank you, President.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Attaf for his statement.